pausing and allowing yourself to pause at the right times of the year, cherishing it and celebrating as well, I think is really helpful.
Welcome to Time to Press Pause, real life stories from the C-suite. I'm your host, Ellen Williams, CEO of The Salient Strategist. And today, my guest and I are speaking about how life has multiple pauses, not just the big ones that people have stories about, but the little everyday ones as well. My guest today is Sophie Devonshire, CEO of the Marketing Society and best-selling author of Superfast, Lead at Speed. She also co-authored Love Work with international leadership expert Ben Renshaw, who was a season 1 guest on this podcast. Sophie is an experienced business leader, entrepreneur, and marketer. She formerly worked with multinational companies, including Procter Gamble and Coca-Cola, and has personal experience of being a successful entrepreneur, creating and selling her own award-winning e-commerce business. Sophie is passionate about connecting ideas and people and works to help inspire leaders make a difference to the future of business. As an impatient accelerator, she specializes in understanding questions of pace and purpose in business. Sophie, welcome to Time to Press Pause. I'm so happy to have you here today.
It's brilliant to be here. So interested in this topic.
Brilliant. I always love that word and your accent. I never use it in the US, but I love hearing brilliant. So thank you. I am so excited to hear your Press Pause story. Please share it with us.
Well, Ellen, there have been a few pauses in a squiggly career. So I have a friend called Helen Tupper, who with her partner, Sarah Ellis, have written a book called Squiggly Careers. And careers are often not very linear. I started out my career falling incredibly in love. So I joined Procter Gamble in their brand management scheme, a little bit by accident, stumbled into it, so a story around that, but immediately fell totally in love with the business, the way it was run, with business itself, the way it is so fascinating to see what goes on and how you can change things with branding and marketing. I'm now CEO of the Marketing Society, so always loved what great marketing can do. But I fell in love with business, I fell in love with marketing, and I fell in love with somebody who, very inconveniently at the time, fell in love with them, who ended up being my husband. Now, the reason I bring this up is because, as so often in life, it's not just your career choices that are critical, but your life choices. And because I chose to be with him, and he didn't love his work as much as I loved my work, he ended up moving into a different career, which with a foreign office. That took us overseas into lots of different places. Inevitably then, when you are moving together, there are opportunities to change direction, to have a career which is a bit more squiggly rather than linear. And I've gone from brand management in Procter Gamble and Coca-Cola to consultancy, and then to starting my own e-commerce startup. So that was the first pause, a change and a shift. I then went on to become an advisor to the C-suite, looking at purpose and pace inside their organizations. And as part of that, decided to take another pause alongside what I was doing to capture some of the thinking to start writing my book. So I wrote a book called Superfast, Lead at Speed. And I did that because I'm an acceleration addict. I've always loved seeing brands grow fast, businesses go at high velocity, leadership which moves at pace and in the right direction. But I'm very aware, and I was at the time, that so many of us in senior roles really get frustrated by how slow businesses can be. And I bring up the fact that I started my own startup as an example. So I've worked with and helped and been in high growth startups and scale ups and in big super tanker organizations. And I love it when you are able to bring the agility ability of some of the faster growth organizations to big super tankers with heft and power. But all of us, when we work in leadership, we tend to be impatient leaders and we want to make things happen fast. So building in an understanding of how to get the pace right so that you don't just rush like headless chickens, but you move fast in the right direction was really important to me. So one of the most important pauses I had across a career where I changed and shifted and pivoted what I did was taking the time alongside my day job as a CEO of a consultancy to write. And as I wrote, there was the opportunity there for me to slow down the thinking, to capture everything else that was going on, but then also to help others speed up. And at the heart of looking at a world which is moving super fast and absolutely right now is not going to slow down anytime soon, in the midst that, pausing to work out how I could help share the stories of others to speed up the success of really good leaders was a really interesting experience. Because I spent the time slowing down, pausing to listen to others, to talk about their speed, their pause, how they dealt with getting the pace right, it has then become something that has sped up my thinking, which has allowed me to go faster and further and to continue to help others. And we know that business needs leadership, which is thoughtful, which is able to be responsive, to move fast when it needs to deal with the crises, to deal with the opportunities, but also responsible. And being responsible itself, of course, as you know, often requires some time to pause. One of the things I've found as well is that all of us, and I talk about myself, but anybody who's ambitious in business, telling them they need to stop because things are going too fast, or we need to stop to think, there's something in the behavioral economics of that language that doesn't work. Talking about strategic pauses, reframing things can be really helpful. So my strategic pause, when I first moved overseas from the UK, I moved to the Middle East. I took 3 months to work out what I wanted to do, where I was going. And as soon as you reframe it as a pause to think, the power of that is brilliant. I've lived and worked with companies and in countries around the world. And each time, wherever I am, whatever the culture is, talking to people and giving myself the permission to have strategic pauses, as you know, can be amazing. And then I think the thinking that was done around pausing to write the book allows me also to think about those micro moments of pause. So the pause before a project, encourage my team always and myself to go, okay, let's just do a pre-mortem. Let's work out what's going to go wrong. And having that as a pause is so powerful. And then pausing halfway through, because science shows if you tell people that halfway through, they always speed up. But the pause halfway through, so you know if you're on track or not, is really, really helpful. And then the pause immediately after you've done something, so you get fast feedback while it's fresh. Building in those pauses gives you much more momentum and makes you feel as if we're not on this constant roller coaster and we can't get off, but that we're on an exciting journey with the moments in it which allow us that rare and precious thing, which is time to think.
I love that you talked about so many different pauses and the fact that although many of my guests focus on a single pause, life has many pauses and down to the micro pauses. We pause every day, we pause every week. Sometimes it is that big pause. And I do want to get a little more information from you about your bigger pause. So you mentioned actually 3 big pauses. One was the move to the Middle East, where you took 2 months to, okay, now what am I going to do? I kind of have to figure things out. The second one was when you launched your own business. So that obviously needs preparation. I've been through that a few times. The more times I launch businesses, the better I get at it. But that it does take reflection and thoughtfulness. And then the third time was the book. Can you chat a little bit more about your 2-month pause in the Middle East?
I think there is a wonderful opportunity for anybody who is navigating the next. So I spend a lot of time now in my current role talking to people who are doing this. So Marketing Society is a global community of change leaders in marketing. That means there are individuals in senior, successful roles, but they often move from company to company or shift and shape their career. And I was doing that on a small level when I first moved from the corporate world to finding myself in a place where I needed to explore what was next. And when I talk to people right now, I do think there's a framing piece there of the bit in between is such a good opportunity to learn, to connect, to grow, and often to do what the CEO of GE once talked about, which is the soak period, like really letting your brain absorb what's coming next and thinking about how to go into a new role, all guns blazing. But the big learning for me, when I found myself in a different country, the big opportunity there was to really look at how I could, as quickly as possible, build my tribe, my network, my wasta, which is a Middle East term for where you've got the power. And I do think a lot of us make the mistake of leaving it too late to build our own networks, tribes, and communities because we're so busy with our day-to-day jobs. It's obviously harder when you're not in the country, when you land in a country. Finding ways to tap into existing communities can really help. I found myself in a different country with needing the audacity to ask people for help. So people I'd not met before, who should I meet? Who do I speak to? And seeing very, very quickly that, as happens in every single country around the world, a network, community, meeting people who meet other people, that is a brilliant way to navigate into your next role. So I ended up joining a fantastic agency in the Middle East, so moving into a different direction, having been client side, but I did it through the coffees. And we often talk to people when they're looking for something to say, have 100 different coffees with 100 different people to work out what you want to do and to navigate your way to something. And I actually, looking back on it, of course, there's pressure and impatience when you're going through that process. But now I think that pause you have in between roles is such a good learning opportunity if you've got your ears properly open to really think about what the different options were. So you see so many people now who really find themselves in something because of circumstances, and their careers are shaped because they are in a different place. If I hadn't followed my husband to go overseas, I wouldn't have ended up doing such interesting and challenging things. Opportunities come out of it. So seeing a pause as a gift, seeing it as an opportunity to build a network. So I'm still very good friends with a lot of people I worked with in the Middle East. We have a hub for the Marketing Society in GCC, so UAE and Saudi, and there's still lots of very good friends who I see when I'm out there, and that was many, many years ago. I planted the seeds of that by using the pause to build a community. The thing I have learned from that, and which I would absolutely say something different to do at other times, is to be even bolder about not being afraid to meet people, talk to them, get something out of it. I think nice people feel guilty about having the coffees and asking for help, which worries me because I think otherwise we get the more cocky, super confident people who are succeeding in business. So actually realizing that people are interested in helping. Generally in life, there are lots of people who like giving back, who like helping others. So asking people for help in navigating that. And also building up friends, not just contacts. When you meet people and you're trying to build it up and you clearly know they want something from you, it's very different. If you meet people who are interested in your stories and you can build friends, not just contacts, that's a wonderful way to use the pauses in between roles.
That's really wonderful advice. I did not move to the Middle East. I moved from New York to Texas, which is a somewhat big move, weather-wise, culture-wise. And I really like your build my tribe advice because I had no choice. I didn't know anyone here. I moved here for family. It took a little bit for us to, get on our feet. It's the only way I've been able to get valuable feedback, understand the community I'm in now, and decide really where to focus my business. And I love business too. I love talking about it. My business is as a business analyst, so I talk to my clients about their business and their business models all the time. And I really, really enjoy that.
the interesting thing about being a new place is, in your case, there was an obvious organization to join, not so obvious here. And so you look at the chambers and you look at different organizations and you find out who understands what you're talking about. And so I went to a lot of different small groups and large groups. And I was talking very technically when I got here, and I have changed dramatically. But the people who understood what I was saying technically, that's where I hung out. Now I don't have to speak that way. I can speak a little more layman's term and casual, and it's resonating much better, but they still know what I do. So it took a little while to find my place with quote unquote my people, right? And so now I'm off doing the coffees, and it's great, especially in a new place, right? So it's not just the development of my business, but is the development of understanding the community. I think that's really important advice.
And also, Ellen, with that, I think
Sure.
one of the mistakes we make is we get so busy when we're in at the same place that we forget to keep refreshing that. So I do see people who lift their head up and suddenly realize they haven't built a network and haven't built a community because they've been too busy doing their job. And then when they want to navigate to the next, they haven't got that support structure. But also, all businesses and all leaders evolve. To have people around you who can challenge, who can give different perspectives, to have that peer-to-peer exchange is incredibly energizing. So I feel like actually those mandated pauses when you're in between, or the one that happened to me, if you can build those back in, and you don't even need to pause, you just build it in to pause to listen to a few other people. As you say, once you found your people, they can help challenge you, they can help give you different perspectives. So I feel like it's such a powerful thing to know about, and to allow yourself to make time to add into wherever you are and whenever you are without the enforced pauses to do it.
I agree. So besides the enforced pauses, that's a tough one for me. So besides the enforced pauses, what advice do you have for leaders as to when they could identify it's time to press pause?
I quite like using the artificial nature, really, of time passing to do that. So every year I do the year compass, which is a looking back, looking forward, what do you want, setting your goals for the year. And this year I set some very specific, clear goals, which I am looking at every single month in terms of accountability for the business, for my leadership development, for my life. And I think there is something beautiful about New Year. It is an artificial construct, but using that, using the midway point, how far have we come? What have we done? And actually, there's something beautiful about the way in which progress drives pace. So when you look back and go, oh, yeah, we did all that. Because otherwise, you spend all your time going, oh, we've still got all these projects to do. Oh, how are we going to get in there? So pausing and allowing yourself to pause at the right times of the year, cherishing it and celebrating as well, I think is really helpful. If you're driven, you are constantly pushing yourself to go further, but making sure that you celebrate the wins and the progress to keep the hope going, to remind yourself it's a journey, and that, you know, the growth mindset says you're not there yet, rather than actually just giving yourself grief. I think there's a really important rhythm to allowing yourself time to do that. So part of the power of the pause and everything you're talking about here is that when you pause, you can work out not just how fast you want to go, but in what direction. You can set that direction for your team, you can set that direction for yourself. And then by building in that pause, of course, you slow down to speed up.
So you're advocating for just scheduling pauses and not waiting for a time where I can't think anymore, I have to pause. Just make sure you don't get to that point by having those pauses scheduled in. That, I think that's great advice.
So, and going back to your network and building a community point, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The best time to build a network is 5 years ago. If you've built in pauses to make sure you are consciously getting other people's input and meeting new people, that also means you don't have to wait till the enforced pause to build a community.
Sophie, this has really been great. I so appreciate your time here today and all your wonderful advice and wisdom.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm really enjoying the show and looking forward to catching up again soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Time to Press Pause. If you're interested in learning more about Sophie, go to marketingsociety.com. If you're interested in learning more about me, go to thesalientstrategist.com, where you can join my newsletter to stay informed on my upcoming book. And please listen again wherever you listen to your podcasts.